Sometimes I wonder what it must be like for you during the day. You get up in the morning, maybe to the sound of a rooster or lava if you live on the Big Island. And you wake up, you go outside, you grab yourself a fresh egg or a rutabaga, bring it in, stir it up, fry it. Maybe you batter it. Maybe you sprinkle a little powdered sugar on it. It really is however you roll. Who am I to judge? But you have your breakfast. You fill up. You get prepared. You get your electrolytes, maybe from fresh squeezed mango or orange juice, or if you're ambitious, from a beet. You put it into your system. You let God work it through, and off you go to work, perhaps in a car, a gas car if you're normal, an electric car if you're a lunatic, or a rickshaw if you find yourself retro. You get to work and you work hard. Maybe you're in a cubicle. Maybe you're not. Maybe you work on a road crew. Maybe you don't. But whatever you do, it's your day-to-day life, helping you to just get through, to get by, to feel that you've accomplished something. More importantly, that you've given something back to society. And then you come home and you say, wait a minute, what's society going to give back to me? And you know what? I don't blame you for asking that question. You have a right to that. You have given to society. It's society's turn to give back. But society is a cruel mistress. Society tends to be selfish, narcissistic, and care only about herself. Or oneself, itself, they-self. And then you plop yourself down on your couch or your hammock or your three-legged stool. And you start pondering your life and you wonder, was it worth it? And then, oh yes, then, you glance at the clock and realize, well, wait a minute, it's 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, and it's Monday night. I realized that what I had been longing for was there all along. Sure, it didn't show up by clicking my heels 3 times. It showed up because I got on the internet. And I got on to Facebook or YouTube. And sure enough, there he was. The man, the myth, the legend. Once again reminding me that even in your darkest hours, society can give back. And what more could I ask for than a whole hour's worth of Brad Stine Has Issues? Oh, I envy you. Son. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome for that little special intro music that has gotten you so far, so long, giving you that little adrenaline rush you were begging for. This is God's Comic Brad Stine. This is Brad Stine Has Issues, brought to you by Christian Podcast Central, where Brad Stine Issues is at the forefront, the spearhead of Christian podcasts that have people with problems with their fingers. That's my hook, or in this case, my...
So, this is probably going to be a short episode, considering that your intro was like 1/20th of the entire runtime.
What are you trying to get? And listen, if you're brand new to the Brad Stine Has Issues, you need to know that this is where comedy and conservatism and Christianity collides in a cacophony of clarity. So you would think that'd be all I'd need. And I'm ready to see the guy that I came on to this podcast to see, God's Comic, Brad Stine, the guy I've been seeing in all of these episodes on YouTube and all these clips. This guy apparently is funny somehow. So you're thinking that's all you're going to get. And then out of the blue comes this odd voice, disembodied voice, I might add, mocking my three-finger salute.
I'm not mocking your three-finger salute. I'm mocking the innate ramblings that you have at the beginning of every episode, which seems to tie into the episode about as much as, I don't know, dumping 12 gallons of Mountain Dew off the side of a mountain. Doesn't really connect to much now, does it?
Well, wait a minute. Maybe the mountain had given, and this was what the mountain was due.
Just continue with it.
Listen, I didn't start this. You did. You're the one that decided to interfere in my incredible free-form stream of consciousness opening.
Would be so kind as to review the previous streams. I think they will find you are in fact the one who starts this, just as you start every episode.
Yes. Well, listen. I want to let you know why I do that. Are you ready?
I'm waiting.
And what would you guess? If you were to guess, and you're my son, so you have a lot of, and if you don't know who the voice is, that's my son, Wyatt Stine. He works at Lowe's, and he issued from my loins. He's somebody that is there to be my sidekick, my little repartee, my little co-host. He's funny at times, other times he's incoherent. But this is what happens when you get a 25-year-old millennial doing their best to sound like they have some sense of an education, as opposed to propaganda that has been driven down their throat until they chewed it long enough to realize maybe this is true. This is the hurdles I have to ramp up to get my son back into clarity. So, son, I don't know why you don't appreciate my extemporaneous stream of consciousness opening monologues that, by the way, not scripted. I never know what's coming out of my mouth until you say go. Yep. Son, don't you give your dad some credit for that?
I have that same talent to start with a topic and just have it go wherever. The issue is it doesn't really mean that much in the context of a show that's supposed to have a theme.
What's my theme?
If your intro is themeless.
What is the theme of this show?
I don't really know. You just give me a bunch of clips to play, and then you just go, okay, I'm talking now, and then I just have to fill in the blanks in between.
Well, you know, one of the most famous sitcoms of all time, Seinfeld, always described themselves as a show about nothing. So I like to think of Brad Stine Has Issues as a show about something, but we don't know what it is until we get there. So it's tricky, and it's mysterious, and it's almost like a little adventure. A lot of these folks will go to the trouble of researching and doing some in-depth interviews and put them all together and compile them in something that one might call coherence. I don't go that direction, son. I try to keep people guessing, especially me.
Well, you're doing a bang-up job of that, I'll tell you that much.
Amen.
I definitely have no idea where you're going.
Thank you. There I go. So I've proven my point. If you don't know where you're going, maybe you just have to go along for the ride and see how you get there. And that's where we are at this point. Because you know what, folks? Here's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Aren't you going to mention who was first to say hi? And the answer is I've decided not to. Why do you think I've decided not to mention who was first on the thread today? What do you think caused me to decide not to say anything?
If I had to guess, I would say most likely the fact that the person who is always the first is basically laser engraved on my computer screen feed because of how often it happens.
And what is it that I don't want him to get by constantly lifting him up? What is it that I'm trying to instill in his character that will allow him to be a better man in the end?
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, I understand being the first in this podcast is a pretty big deal.
Isn't it?
But he can't let it get to his head.
Yes. We don't want it to get to his head. Why? Because our job between you and I is to bring people back down to a good foundation, a humbleness, and a realization that no matter how clever and tactical and, may I say, unscrupulous and somehow dastardly, how he pulls it off, I don't know. I don't know. But I just felt like this time I'm not going to give him credit just to keep him in a balance, son. So it's really about me defending his spiritual journey. What do you think?
That's the answer you've come to after all of that intensive research.
You know what? I have had people tell me that I spend too much time telling everybody who they are. Like, hey, good to see you, Karen. Good to see you, you know, Teresa. Good to see you, whomever. And some people said, oh, quit talking about them and just get on with the show. So this time I did. And sure enough, you complained. I don't understand it.
You're the one who brought up, hey, guess who's the first one on the stream again?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, man, is it the person who always is? And now, next thing you know, this is happening.
Yes. See, here's the key, son. It's always keeping you on your toes to earn the big bucks. And I think we all have proven that. And by the way, everybody's very proud of you that you figured out your button so they can hear me now, being as that is the single most important thing for a podcast is the audio. And it took you, what, only a year to figure out that button?
Oh, really? How long did it take you to figure out how to log on to Facebook before each stream so you could read the comment? Oh, wait! You still don't know and have to have me do it.
Hey, listen, I don't think you understand. When you've reached my status, I have people that do these things for me.
The thing that I don't understand, though, is you're comparing me, my job, which is to use technology that I've never dealt with before, and I'm trying my best. You're comparing me working that with you trying to access a website that you know the name of, yet don't know how to get to.
Well,
you know, you could, it's literally one of the rare instances where you could Google your problem and that would also be your answer.
I remember in the 60s, a neighbor kid told me about Google for the first time. He said, you know what Google is? I said, no. He said, it's a number so big, it's one with 100 zeros next to it. He said, that's Google. And I always found that to be, never forgot that, and clearly.
And it goes bigger than that, too. There's something called a Googleplex.
What does that mean?
Which is a one with a Google zero stuff to it.
Ooh.
And then I've actually heard, though I can't confirm if this is an actual number, but I remember reading somewhere that there was something bigger than a Googleplex, a Googleplexian, which is a one with a Googleplex zeros behind it.
Okay.
And I don't know what the significance of these numbers are, because normally big numbers have a purpose.
Okay.
Like a mole in chemistry, it's like 6.02 times 10 to the 33rd or something power, and it's basically used for like molecules and stuff because they're tiny.
Okay.
But a Google, it's just a big number that exists because some numbers are big. That's the best I can come up with for why you have it. I mean, we have light years, which is how much distance light travels in a year, which surprisingly does not make it a unit of time, despite the fact that it's a light year.
As opposed to a heavy year?
Yeah, and we
so
have...
listen, let me, and God knows this is fascinating. Lord knows.
To me, it's fascinating.
I couldn't want to indulge more of my people in your Googleplex and your insights into the breakdown of the molecular numerical structure in order to name each one of the molecular.
I see you're still doing that improv segment of the show where you're just spouting random stuff.
Yes, that's what I'm doing. Trying to find a cohesiveness that will allow the people not to want to hang themselves. But here's what I did want to talk about, because I'm just a regular guy, and many people that come on, and you know, we get some new folks on every week. You know that, right?
Yeah.
We got a lot of regulars,
yeah.
But we got a lot of new folks. They don't always stick around. Sometimes they pop on, pop off. But others say, I've seen this guy. He's funny. Oh, look, he's here. Let's come take a look. So they don't know anything about what we do and why we're doing it and what it's all about. But the thing that does usually bring people, if they're going to show up, is they have heard about me. Believe it or not, son, it's not about you, and I wish it was. But it's about me. They've seen me. They've seen my show. They think it's funny. They think it's good. So in that little realm, in this tiny little realm of conservatism, Christian comedy, I'm a celebrity. Does that make sense to you? Celebrity. And in order to be a celebrity, to me, that what that actually means is that you have recognition of some kind. Now, I have always wrestled with celebrity. It always bothered me. Now, keep in mind, and I'm being very upfront because there's no other reason not to be, I'm not famous. If famous means that a majority of folks know you, I'm not famous. If famous means that you've won giant accolades and awards or made millions of dollars accomplishing something, or you've done something for science or technology or for the humanity that lets the whole world know your name and associate it with something like a Abraham Lincoln or Thomas Edison or Nelson Mandela or a Ernest Borgnine, you might be considered famous and or a celebrity. So there's nothing wrong inherently in my mind with somebody having a celebrity status, as in they are known for folks, especially if it's for something altruistic, something they've done that was good and important. But where it bothers me is what has happened to America. And again, as I do have, as you know, Australians that watch, Irish that watch, English that watch, Canadians that watch. Now, believe it or not, these are humans too. And I know you find that difficult to believe. And son, I did for a long time. Until I did the research, I didn't know that Australians were humans, but they are. They're just like us, except for less valuable. So this is very important that we give them a little bit of their, attaboys, even though they're in a lockdown, police state. But that's their fault. They don't like guns. But celebrity to me is a deeply dysfunctional characteristic of where modern society is, because what it ends up doing is it ends up worshiping, for lack of a better term, an idol or a fellow human being. Now, the idol traditionally was a fake or false god that was designed to be worshipped instead of the actual real God that actually really exists, and the idol took its place. Now, I've told you this before. I'm convinced that human beings are designed to worship God. Now, the reason human beings are designed to worship God is because God exists, and God made us, and God decided that you got to worship him. So that's really what he's done. Now, I don't believe that God said, I made people to worship me because I didn't feel good enough about myself. You're God! I would think that'd be enough. So to have something you created worship you is really, to me, no different than buying a puppy and then it loves you and licks on you and can't wait to see you and you feel great about yourself, but the puppy doesn't kind of know any different. You feed it, you raise it, you're nice to it, so it instinctively believes that you are its master, and it will give you instinctively all of its accolades and its affection, because it's kind of designed to accommodate the alpha male that's protecting it, or female that's protecting it, feeding it, watching over it. Okay, so that kind of is where an idol fits. It's a means to try to fulfill this desire for something greater than yourself and give it what it deserves. Okay, now I say that, and many of you know what I'm saying, but some of you may not. But why I bring this up is because think about the term, for example, American Idol. That's the name of a television show, American Idol. We're going to idolize, literally coming from the word idol. We are going to give godlike status to another human because they sing really good, or they pretend to be somebody else really good. Ever thought about that? In acting, I made a joke about it. Actors make a living pretending to be somebody else. In their world, it's called acting. In our world, it's called schizophrenia. The idea that being really good at pretending to be somebody else and getting paid an enormous amount of money, more than you deserve, I don't see as being necessarily morally balanced. But once again, if you give accolades and worship an idol of an actor, they're going to be treated in such a degree. It's always bothered me. What do I mean? I want to differentiate between famous, I guess, and celebrity. To me, famous is simply a lot of people know who you are. And by the way, I don't mind being famous in that I want people to know me because I want them to watch what I'm doing because I think it has some value. So the only reason I'm interested in fame is simply so that more people can hear what I'm saying with the hope that it's helpful to them, it's inspiring to them, it's healing to them. It's a positive thing for them in their life. It's why I started this. It's why I keep doing it, because people tell me, thank you for what you're saying. You give me some strength. You give me some insight. You give me some healing. You give me some wisdom. You give me some inspiration. You give me some courage. That's important. So if fame means large reach, broader net, I'm interested in that because I think that's just being a good steward of the time you take. And trust me, to come up here every Monday and make up these brilliant extemporaneous monologues, Wyatt, it's not easy, son. It really it tears at the fabric of my soul. I do it for them. Can you blame me?
No. I mean, honestly, people deserve to hear what you have to say.
See?
Even the stuff that they can comprehend.
Right. And a lot of it, for the most part, they can't. Why? Gives the illusion of intelligence.
I mean, think about it. If you're just throwing up a bunch of really big words, people think you're smart.
Right.
Scientists use big words and they're smart.
Yeah.
So if I use it, I must be big smart.
Yeah. You know what the biggest word is?
Hippopotamus. Anti-disestablishmentarianism.
Humongous.
What about colossal?
Humongous is bigger than colossal. That's my point. It's the biggest of words. Humongous.
Ginormous?
Not as big as humongous.
Are you sure? I'm pretty sure ginormous.
Humongous is the biggest word of all time, period.
What if I wrote colossus in all caps?
Okay, well, that would simply be a sad idolatry of the word humongous. That what should have been used all along.
What if I said large, but like with a really big font?
Yeah, again, desperately seeking to be humongous. No.
Hippopotamus, but bold.
It doesn't matter. It's not as big as humongous. And I don't even know why I have to keep going on. I shouldn't have got off this rabbit trail with my son desperately seeking to make a word big simply because of the font. Nevertheless, why am I talking about famous and celebrity? Celebrity, to me, is what happens when the fame it becomes translated into a almost worship or an idolizing or almost a sense of the sacred given to a fellow human. I hate it. I hate it. I've had people that wanted my autograph that are fans and saw me when they met me, as I could tell that they saw me as this giant celebrity that they didn't know how to respond around. And I always try to make those guys feel normal. It's like, look, hey, thank you for liking my material. I'm grateful for that. I'm just a regular guy. I want them to enjoy what I do. Of course, I don't want them to think I'm better than them, especially that I don't think I'm better than them. Now, why am I going on and on about that? Because number one, it's a problem in our society. It's a reason. There's a reason why certain people are allowed to do evil things and slap a guy after the Oscars and not be put into jail or anything along that line. And of course, I know later got him resigned from the Academy, and he did that because they told him, I'm guessing, go ahead and resign. We're not going to do anything to you. And in about a year, you can apologize, and then we'll let you back in. And basically, nothing happened. It doesn't happen to the regular folks like us. But why do I bring it up? Again, because I want you to know that when I tell you who I am and what I stand for, what I believe in, it's true. It's not something I make up. It's not something that I'm trying to create a gimmick or a hook. It's what I really am. And I hope, if nothing else, I inspire you to be true to yourself. How do you see things? What is important to you? And that you can live it out in real time and have the courage to do it no matter what other people think. But just to kind of prove my point, for the last 3 weeks, there's been one little segment or theme that's come up in the podcast in 3 weeks. Why? What has that theme been? 3 weeks, same idea.
3 weeks, same idea. It's always been, I forget the exact way you phrase it. I think it's parallel ideas or something.
Parallel development.
Parallel development. The idea that multiple people in multiple situations at multiple different points in time can come up with the same idea.
That's right. And that's not unusual. It's very similar. That's why we have copyright laws. That's why we've had plagiaristic lawsuits, because people said, I had that idea, I thought of that. And it's very likely they did. Now, sometimes thinking of something isn't the same as putting it into practice. Just because I thought of an idea that we should have cell phones doesn't do any good until the guy invents cell phones. He gets to have the product because he actually created it. But I bring it up because, number one, I want to show you guys that I have been trying to think clearly my whole career, that I've tried to be sophisticated, I've tried to be smart, I've tried to be insightful, and I've tried to stand for things, especially poking a little hole in those who think they're better than the rest of us. And for that very reason, I want to show you a clip of a celebrity. Now, this celebrity is somebody you will know. His name is Ricky Gervais. He's an atheist, outspoken evangelist for atheism. He's also incredibly talented, very funny, great, funny, humorous actor, stand-up deliverer of information, writer. I think he's written 3 or 4 hugely hit television shows, The Office being one that started in Britain and ended up in the U.S., and a handful of others. Extras is one he wrote. If you've never seen it, you got to see it. Brilliant. But I love this guy. I pray for him that he will come to know Christ, because he's an atheist, and I just want this guy to be with me in heaven so we can laugh together. But he was at the Oscars 3 or 4 times doing the hosting, and this guy roasted the snot out of these people. The last time he was on, which was a few years ago, he said it was going to be his last time ever. I don't know that it's true. He might come out of retirement. But in that, he really went after him. He called them pedophiles, things that were just unbelievable. But at one point, he then gave them marching orders as to how they should approach the podium, how they should approach getting their awards, and what they should and shouldn't do, and how they should think of themselves. I want you to see this and listen to this and watch it. You may have seen it before. You'll get a laugh out of it. Might have some crude language. I don't think might have. If it does, we're adults. Deal with it. But I wanted you to see the material, and I want you to recall what he's talking about. And the reason is because in a moment after this, and this is done, I think, in like 3 or 4 years ago, I think, I'm going to show you another clip afterwards of another comic, not as famous, who did something years before, and see if you find a parallel. So Wyatt, if you can find the clip for Ricky Gervais, do me a little bit favor, find the button and push it.
Service, you'd call your agent, wouldn't you? So if you do win an award tonight, don't use it as a platform to make a political speech, right? You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. So, if you win, right, come up, accept your little award, thank your agent and your God, and
So, it's a much longer monologue than that, obviously. And he was slamming people. I think he did Jeffrey Epstein stuff. I mean, this guy was ruthless. But you see what he said? He said, if you win, you'll come up, get your little award, thank your agent and your God, and head on out, because nobody cares. You're not that important. This this brilliant comedian, this courageous comedian, in front of these celebrities who, I'm sorry, think they're better than other humans. Think they're better than other humans. Act as though they're better than other humans. They desperately try to find causes to give them the illusion of graciousness and feel good about themselves because they know they're way overpaid for being so unimportant to humans. But I want you to remember what Ricky Gervais said at the Oscars. And then, in 2004, so maybe 15 years earlier, a little-known comedian did this.
And I love my wife. I joke about her because it's who she is, and I love her. Because what you find out in life, in a good relationship of marriage, is that what makes it work is not the easy parts, it's the hard parts. That's what makes it work. That's when you learn how to love somebody. That's when you learn how to commit to somebody, because it's hard. And you know what, kids? Hard is good. I'm so tired of the kids. It's so hard. It's supposed to be. It's supposed to build something that we've lost in this country. It's called character. Hard is good. Hard is supposed to be good. But what we have here is a loss of understanding of what made this country great. You know why? Because we've got so much abundance that we don't appreciate it. And so what we no longer look up to is the clergy to lead us. No longer look for honorable men to lead us. We look to actors to lead us. God bless you, Sean Penn. You're a great actor. But I don't care who you're voting for. When you're taking your little Oscar, sit down and shut up. I don't care. It's supposed to be an award show, not a political statement. These are the people that have 50 singing award shows a year for themselves in $500,000 gowns and acting like they care for the downtrodden. Hypocrisy at the highest level. You're just an actor. You pretend to be somebody else for a living. What's the big deal? In your world, it's acting. In our world, it's called schizophrenia. But we see it all the time, caring about people that don't give enough back. Where do you see it the most? Where do you see it the most? Supermodel. What's that thing they do at the end? How is that supposed to be attractive? Yes, I walk like no girl on earth, and then I have a problem with my spine. Did I mention that part? They walk for a living. That's all they do. And then they have that arrogant attitude like they're doing something that we can't. Look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. I can walk and wear clothing. Woo! I'm unbelievable. You simply walk for a living. The only thing, I've never heard of a job whose only requirement is you have to be born. Because it's just genetics. That's all they do. That's all they do. And yet what I find is that they're not grateful for getting overpaid. They're thinking not grateful at all. They just talk about how much pressure it is. You ever heard of, oh, it's so much pressure being a ramp model. How much pressure can it possibly be? All right, girls, walk to the end of the ramp. Don't walk off. Spin around, walk back, and I'll pay you $100,000. They make $100,000. You want to know your culture's crumbling from within? When a model makes more money in an hour walking a ramp than a teacher makes in 5 years, that's when you know you got a problem in your culture about caring for those who give too little back.
Ta-da! So as you can see, I said essentially the exact same thing. Doesn't matter. Just do your... I literally said, hey, Sean Penn, great actor, right? Do your act. We don't care what you say. Do your thing. You're an actor. Just be there. Be good there. That's enough. That's good. Now, this is, again, 15, 16 years before Ricky did that. Again, it's not like I'm some genius that nobody else has ever made fun of celebrities thinking they're smarter than the rest of us or whatever. But it was a point I wanted you to see, that hopefully it teaches us that people that are trying to say something that matters have a synergistic mindset, and they're saying the same things. Parallel development, coming up with it on their own, because why would we do that? Why would somebody think of something that's very similar, that come from different backgrounds? I'm a Christ follower. He's an atheist, right? I'm in America. He's in the UK, right? I'm not famous. He is, because there's something innate for a lot of people who simply, in Australia, it's called the tall poppy syndrome. They always say, you know, those who think they're going to get a little bit higher than everybody else, they like to cut those down, chop them down. Actually, a term they use is they take the piss out of them. So, and by the way, if you have a problem with that and you're a Christian, piss is in the Bible. So get over yourself. Why? Did you know piss was in the Bible?
I'm going to need a reference to that, a verse.
Okay. It says, he that pisseth upon a wall can join this army, which was David's army. It was a way of proving it was a male, because only males can pisseth upon a wall. It's King James Version now. Now, if you have Queen James Version, it would be he who squatteth upon a wall. But there is no Queen James Version. Why? So quit asking for one.
I never asked for one.
I feel like you did
I'm
internally.
Just curious.
I feel like internally you were
every...
beckoning for a Queen James Version, and it simply wasn't coming.
I'm just confused as to why out of every single verse in the Bible you could know by heart, one of them is that one.
Because I found it interesting that the Bible will use terms that nowadays we consider inappropriate, and yet they're in the Bible. Now, don't you think if you were at church, you played drums for two different churches, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I do.
If at any point while you're playing your drums and and they had you sing background vocals, and you said piss, would they see that as an upside to the praise and worship service? Or would they consider that inappropriate and possibly not something that should be utilized anymore in the service?
Well, that depends. Did I nail a sick drum solo
I see
before
what
then? Or did I accidentally throw my stick halfway across the stage? Because whatever thing went before that is probably going to determine how it's perceived, to at least some extent.
Okay. What I really love is how you subtly equated the word piss with depends. That was clever. I didn't see that coming. Yeah. He's looking at me like, I don't know what you're talking about. What did I do?
Please explain to the audience that beautiful, amazing thing that I thought of, and I obviously know about, but they don't.
Depends, of course, is a diaper, and so for him to have correlated them, and he didn't. I did that because I knew it would shock him to find out that I gave him credit for something they didn't deserve. Nevertheless.
Hey, listen. We're talking about celebrities, right?
Yes.
We're talking about people getting credit for stuff they don't deserve.
Yes.
Tying it back in, man. I'm just tying it all back in.
Yeah. See how my son is? He brings all the pieces together. He's on my coattails. No question about that. He's hitched to my wagon, but nevertheless, he's going forward and he's going there fastly. Listen, I told you earlier that I felt sad for Ricky Gervais. You know, also I pray for, and I do. Penn and Teller, really interesting guys. Atheist. I pray for Richard Dawkins. I pray for Daniel Dennett. I pray for Sam Harris. I pray for Richard, Shermer. These are all atheists that I pray they become believers, because they're smart guys. Many of them are really creative guys, and I want them to know that, all this stuff that you think you're creating out of your whole cloth in your mind really is coming from a creator that loves you and cares about you. But I can't make him do that. But one of the things that has most become real to me is leftism, which is now controlling America, certainly through the woke corporations and certainly through the dissemination of information, is a religion. I said to you earlier about the idea of idols, and that is finding something else to worship in place of God. I told you that? Okay. Well, that's what religion of the left is. They got rid of God. They believe he needs to be jettisoned. He needs to be gone. They certainly got rid of the Judeo-Christian God. Nothing does the left fear more than Christianity, because it's true. It's literally where God revealed himself in a three-dimensional form, scientifically proven, and died and rose back so that we can know he's true. The evidence is there. They don't want to accept it, and they don't want to believe in it, because then suddenly they are responsible for their behavior. But nevertheless, God has given them proof that he existed, because he was here little ones. And that's exactly what next Sunday represents, Easter, where we will be celebrating literally the greatest moment in human history. God became one of us, his creation, died, rose again to prove that he not only controlled death, but that you now can know your Creator and have perfect balance in your life. Not perfect life. Things are still going to go haywire sometimes, but perfect balance. So we're going to have another analysis of the religion, not just of leftism, which has political ramifications and it has elements of trying to control culture, which very much seems to fit religion. But did you ever consider atheism as a religion? Any ideology or philosophy that runs who you are, that rules you, that controls you, that gives you a foundation, a presuppositional foundation for how you see the world and how you behave, is, for all intents and purposes, your religion. You can't help it. Everybody has a worldview. Everybody has religion. Everybody has a main doctrine that they live by. It's the only way you can survive on Earth. So I'm going to now show you a clip of something that I did a while back, a nice Issues monologue that is something I'll probably start incorporating into this version of Issues. As you know, the original Stine Has Issues were simply 7 to 10 minute rants, but they're so good that I want to bring them back. But eventually I'll be doing them maybe as my opening rants here live for you guys. But right now you're just going to be stuck with the extemporaneous stuff and be grateful for it, as opposed to my son. So, if you didn't realize, consider that atheism is in fact religion. Get a load of this. Hey, it's God's Comic Brad Stine, and today we discover that atheists believe in magic. And it's so magical, they don't even know they believe it. Want to hear more? Come on in. Atheist Cadabra. I don't know if you know this, but there is a group of humans in the 21st century that still believe in miracles. They'll tell you with a straight face that they are enlightened and don't believe in fairy tales and myths, that their religion is based on science and logic and reason, that their priests teach in the most respected universities on earth. They've got doctorates and double doctorates. They're the elite of human thought and have single-handedly brought humanity out of the Dark Ages and into the light, and want to usher in a brand new world where intelligence is measured by how deeply you are committed to the religion of materialism and the salvation of science. They have a sacred text that they revere as holy and inerrant, and it has brought the ultimate revelation to the earth as to man's meaning, purpose, morality, and destiny. And, as all great beliefs, it too has a Genesis story about the origins of man. But remember, this is based on logic and reason and not some archaic invisible man in the sky. They believe only in that which they can touch and taste and hear and smell and see. It's got to be measurable and quantifiable and testable, observable and repeatable. And their Genesis story goes like this. In the beginning, there was nothing, and it blew up. Did you hear what I just said? The smartest of the smart, the most prestigious universities in scientific analysis has reached the conclusion that at one time in history, nothing exploded and created everything. Not only did the explosion form all of matter as we know it, but it spread out across the galaxy, mainly of hydrogen and helium. Some time later, though, there was cooling into orbs that became planets, but still filled with inorganic matter. Nothing was organic or alive as we know it, and yet somehow, inexplicably, this non-living dead matter was resurrected to become living organisms, rising from the dead, and over eons of time magically becoming more advanced and sophisticated. Not by design, mind you, but just the byproduct of billions of years of chance mutations or mistakes that sometimes either had no deleterious effect, so it remained, or accidentally caused the organism to be able to survive better and thus pass this on to its progeny. Because none of this was designed, even the eventual evolution of the brain was an accident. There was no inductive reasoning or planning involved, just instincts that allowed the species to survive, even though it had no self-awareness it was surviving, or that it was soon to be stopping in surviving, in death. Didn't know any of this. Didn't dread death because it couldn't conceptualize it. Now, I'm summarizing, of course, and I don't pretend to be an expert on neo-Darwinistic theory, and yet what I have described is pretty much what the materialist believes. Everything that has gotten us this far to be able to analyze our existence was an accident. It didn't have to happen, just did. But because nothing was designed, then everything is trapped in the matrix, so to speak. No one designed us, nothing was planned, but instead simply plods on without hesitation and without an end game. As a matter of fact, it is all going to cool down someday and die completely. So everything we observe about who we are and where we're going is simply programmed into our brain that even has to give us the illusion we are thinking it for ourselves. But if we got here by time and energy and chance without purpose, then we don't have any ultimate purpose to strive for. But they will tell you they don't believe that. They do agree life has no ultimate purpose, but that's why we choose to give our own purpose to life with our choices. Remember, there is no ultimate meaning, and yet they say by choosing to sort of apply meaning to choices and behavior that somehow magically it takes on significance. This is, of course, the atheist version of faith. Believing and hoping for something they cannot prove in order to make their lives livable. So what have we found? Atheists have a Genesis story. Nothing blew up once, made everything. Atheists believe that inorganic, non-living material can resurrect from the dead, become alive, to begin to evolve, and through struggle and difficulty become more advanced with the hope that someday we'll live forever. They believe in morals coming from nature and instilling it in us, the need to be nice to each other, help each other, even to our detriment, in order to save the world and become enlightened beings whose good works will last eternally. They even believe there are other life forms out there that are always more advanced than us, always more moral, more altruistic. And they'll come here someday to teach us how to become saved from ourselves through their superior knowledge, wisdom, and gifts to us, where someday mankind will lie down with the lion and the lamb, and all will be redeemed. In other words, atheists have to mimic and counterfeit the reality that is God's revelation to man and his salvation through his Son, in order to make their belief system coherent, livable, purposeful, and meaningful. Atheism is simply the religion of the proud who refuse to acknowledge their Creator, but manage to craft their own idols out of fantasy and wishful thinking, all the while attacking and demeaning Christians who, though not perfect, do have the one thing they long for: the actual answer to the question they have no way to answer. Why are we here? because your Creator said so. That's why. Maybe it's time you abandon your fairy tale of atheism and join us. The water's fine. Come on in. We've been waiting for you a long time. This is God's Comic, Brad Stine. And as usual, the truth is what I'm delivering. And PC free is liberty. All right, for all of those of you who appreciate what I'm trying to do in my ministry, and it is, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Brad Stine Has Issues. Please go to my Facebook and be happy to just like, follow it, share it with everybody else you can. As we build more and more people, I will be able to bring in the revenue to allow me to do more episodes, not only like this, but special ones where I'll be interviewing people and having special sketches and all types of things that God is building in this unorthodox way of telling God's story and defending the Constitution and our country and, of course, destroying political correctness. So, if this is something you believe in, please subscribe right now. Don't live in a fantasy. Truly, I am your only shot at getting free from the nonsense out there. You're welcome. God's Comic, Brad Stine. Subscribe now. So I think the question I was examining was, have you ever stopped to consider that atheism is a religion? Now, they will, of course, fight you on that. No, it's not a religion. As a matter of fact, it's anti-religion. As a matter of fact, it's the antithesis of religion. As a matter of fact, it is condemning of religion. It considers religion bad and unhealthy and poisonous. As I think the late Christopher Hitchens said, you know, religion poisons everything. And so this is a desperate attempt by human beings to give themselves significance by believing that life has no significance. You know, I've said this before, but I'll say it again because it's so important. I've spoken with atheists in my lifetime. I find them interesting because they're usually really smart and they are really not easily led astray one way or the other. They've thought things through. They actually did research. They actually tried to educate themselves on whatever it is they believe. So I really enjoy that conversation because it has depth, and I have to be on my toes and have my shield and my sword ready to fence with some experts. But I think the thing that I have really found interesting over the years is this. There's a concept inherent in the foundations of atheism that was first formulated by Nietzsche, and the idea that God is dead. Now, when the man ran through the street with his lantern seeking for God and saying, "Where is God? God is dead. We've killed him," I don't know if a lot of atheists realize that that was a lament. That was not a man victorious thinking, we finally gotten rid of this this ridiculous God. We don't need him anymore. This is an archaic belief system that isn't of any importance to us. That's not what he was saying. He was in lament. He was in grief. He realized that everything is possible now. He realized that no one will have any absolute transcendent moral absolute truth by which they will be expected to behave. Not how they'll behave, but they'll be expected to. The difference between is and ought. One thing that I have noticed about atheists, and I've never met one yet that can grasp this concept, and the concept is simply what Nietzsche said, and others have simply elaborated on later, as in even Sam Harris and Dawkins. If we are here by accident, if we are simply part of the gigantic explosion we now reference as the Big Bang, if we are simply cooled molecules of matter and material and chemicals and gases that somehow eventually over billions and billions and billions of years for no reason whatsoever actually formulated into water, and from that this inorganic matter became organic. They have no way of proving that. They have no way of justifying it. There's not a scientific theory or idea that even begins to broach how it's possible that life came from non-life. It is literally a magic trick. It is literally a miracle. It is literally a fairy tale if there is no God. It's their version of the miraculous, the invisible man in the sky that they mock. Their version is there was nothing, it blew up, and then over time, that which was inorganic somehow brought on life to itself, and then without any purpose whatsoever over eons of times, by mutations, brokenness in transmitting the information, it got more and more and more sophisticated, completely anti-science. Everything by the second law of thermodynamics states that things left to itself by entropy will degrade. But suddenly they're saying the most sophisticated things in the universe, history, us, came about by mutations that made us better and more amazing. And from that became everything from a fish and an alligator to a giraffe to a hippopotamus to a whale to a mosquito to a human. No proof. Nothing that actually fits. If I was to give you that story and you'd never heard that reference before, you would think you were giving me a fairy tale because it's absurd. There had to at least be an engineer that started all this and got the ball rolling. But if it's true, then we are simply, as I once framed it, we are simply advanced amoebas that got too big for our britches and became self-aware, because that's all we are. We're not better than any animal. We're not better than any insect. We're not better than any plant. We're not better than any molecule. There is no better. We just happen to be one of a myriad of biological entities floating around until we die and another breed comes on. And it's just a life cycle that continues and continues for no reason until the universe eventually collapses in on itself, and everything that we've accomplished, every evil deed that was ever done, every wonderful thing that was ever done, every altruistic, beautiful thing that gave support, and every evil and horrific, treacherous thing that was ever done, all vanishes into forever oblivion. And it simply ends this whole facade of life. So, if there is no designer, no engineer, no prime mover, no meta-narrative, ultimate story, the full novel, if that doesn't exist, then all the little stories inside of it, because you'll hear atheists say this, we make our own meaning. I said, no. You are in the same narrative I am, this giant universe. It's a giant book. It has a beginning, a middle, and eventually an end. Everything that we do inside of that is simply a story contained in the book. But when the book disappears, you're gone, your story is gone. It has no relevance. I've never met an atheist that can grasp this. If life has no meaning, your belief has no meaning. I'll give meaning to it myself, has no meaning. I'll just love people without needing God, has no meaning. I'll simply learn science and learn about things and how they work and just be amazed by that. Amazement has no meaning. But yet I can still see beauty. I don't need God to show me beauty, but beauty has no meaning. Thus, all of it is an illusion. And if we've reached a point that you have, that you agree it's an illusion, and you keep doing it knowing it's an illusion, you are mentally ill. You are living in a delusion, not the God delusion, the non-God delusion. You cannot write a 500-page treatise about scientism and neo-Darwinism and how life has no intrinsic meaning, and then state that you find meaning in that conclusion. And there has never been an atheist I have met that can grasp that. Every stinking debate they have, every book they write, every comment and snarky trolling they do on Christian sites, every single one of those moments they do with the intent of meaning. Every time they behave in a way as though life has meaning, they are proving one of the clues of proofs of God. They can't live in the world they believe is true. It doesn't work. You have to believe in meaning and live as though it exists. And if you have to believe as though it exists, as though its existence has meaning, and you find solace in that meaning and truth in that meaning, it's because life has meaning. But the material world couldn't have done that. It had to be the engineer, the designer, the creator of the material world. That's just philosophy. That's just logic. That's just reason. More importantly, that's just the truth. So in the end, when people come to watch Brad Stine Has Issues, they wonder to themselves, hey, he's just a comic. What is going on, And then suddenly I'm not being funny like all the other comic podcasts are. And I try to have some fun with you guys because I know that some of you come on to see that. But it's imperative to me that you understand that my faith is not something that I have and I'm trying to convince you of. It's truth. It's the actual rule book of life is the Bible. It tells us what actually happened, how we're here, why we're here, what went wrong, how do we fix it, where are we going. That's what it's all about. I give it to you because it's my purpose. And anybody that believes in this has the same purpose and should do likewise. I talk about laughter because it's a joyful thing. God gave us so we can laugh because it makes us feel good and lets us see the human condition for not taking ourselves too seriously. And why should we? We have a creator that created everything and even in spite of ourselves loves us and even died for us. The most incredible story in human history. And it comes to your doorsteps next Sunday. And if you've never gone to church at a Christian church, next Sunday is the time to go. Go see what Easter is about. It will change your life. It is truly and in fact teaching you the meaning of life. As you know, I'm out on a 2.5-week tour with Rick Green, the America's Constitution coach. We're having a blast. If you believe that a podcast that lifts up God and country, that lifts up our faith, lifts up our free speech, if you think it should exist and you want it to grow, you can donate. It's a nonprofit. I don't get paid for this, and it will give you a tax break. Just say just ask for the link as you speak. Can you please send me the link? You can send it in, and we'll continue to grow this. I'm going to continue to bring on guests. I'm going to continue to try to add elements of this that makes it the most unique, sophisticated, hopefully funny, humorous, interesting, important, substance-driven, Christian conservative podcast I can get. It's for God's honor, so I'll let him run it. I can only be so good at what I do because I don't know how good that is. But I'm doing my best. Thank you for all of you who've always been here, who've always believed in it, and have always supported it with your prayers, with just showing up. It's always amazing to me and humbling to see Karen's and Nick's showing up every single week and spend their time of their life watching this and supporting it just by being there and saying, hey, this matters. So it humbles me. And I know it humbles my son because, frankly, he thought getting that gig at Lowe's was as good as it gets. This is God's comic, Brad Stine, letting you know that PC free is liberty. Go forth and do likewise. And remember, what's my purpose? Helping the woke back to sleep. God bless you. See you next week.